This is Tell Me Exactly, an emergency communications podcast. I'm your host, Meridith Jensen. And today we're back with part 2 and telling you all about the misconceptions of emergency medical dispatch. Joining me again today is Jose Rodriguez. Jose, thanks for coming back.
Thank you for inviting me back.
All right. So just to kind of quickly recap, we are going through the 9 misconceptions of emergency medical dispatching, and that comes from the Principles of EMD textbook that all of our dispatchers get when they go through EMD certification. So we covered the first 4, and they all were kind of very similar and kind of in the same vein. The caller's too upset to respond accurately. The caller doesn't know the information that we're looking for. The dispatchers are too busy to waste time on those kinds of things. And the medical expertise or knowledge of the dispatcher is not important. So now we're going to pick up with number 5 in that list, which is the phone information from dispatchers cannot help victims and may even be dangerous.
So again, it's another misconception, and it kind of picks up where we left off in point 3 from our last episode. I think phone information is absolutely important and will absolutely help victims. And it's not dangerous. I believe it's more dangerous to not provide instructions, because nowadays it's expected. If you call 911, you're going to get CPR instructions. You're going to get choking instructions. And if you don't provide those instructions, you're actually more in danger of a liability than you are by not providing the instructions.
Yeah. Long gone are the days when you would call 911, or maybe even back in the day, the 7-digit number for emergency dispatch. And when you would call 911 and just say, I need help, get him here. And they would go, okay, help is on the way, and hang up, right? Those days are long gone. Callers expect a lot more. Callers expect you to even know where they are as soon as you pick up the phone, right? And so, this misconception, I feel like, couldn't be more wrong.
Well, and we know science has proven that early CPR gives the patient a better chance of survival than waiting however long the response is going to be for that unit to arrive and start CPR at that point.
Right. Yeah. What is it? The survival rate decreases about 10% for every minute that passes for someone in cardiac arrest.
I believe that was science, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So absolutely. And to not provide that CPR, all you're doing is really actually causing more harm to the patient than to give them those instructions.
Right. And our protocols have a lot of questions in them that are designed to put a focus on caller safety, on responder safety, scene safety. So kind of like you mentioned, like you said, it would be more dangerous not to ask questions, right? So if we were sending responders in completely blind, when we have that opportunity with that person on the phone to get information, that's, in my opinion, one that just really couldn't be more wrong.
Exactly. And with the research that we have done, all our instructions are designed for blind instructions to the caller, but designed for that phone call, to be able to give those instructions remotely through a phone.
Yeah.
There's not one instruction that in my old life that I haven't used that they're not always going to have a positive outcome, but you definitely have you feel better at the end because at least you did everything you could for that person.
You made an impact, right? Absolutely. Yeah, and like you said, our research, we've got the numbers to show that the things that we're doing over the phone with our callers is helping. To your point, we may not always have a positive outcome, but we can always make an impact, and we can always do something, which is way better than doing nothing. So that's a doozy.
That was another loaded question.
It's really loaded, but like I said, in my opinion, I don't think that one could be more wrong. So the next one on our list here is that more personnel and more units at the scene are always better. Wow, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this, Jose.
This is very personal to me. I'm a big believer of sending the right resources at the right time. We still work with agencies that send, they'll, what I used to call empty out the firehouse and send everybody there.
Yeah.
Which, there's some calls that you need to send everybody. It's needed. Based on the protocol, you might need more resources. A fire, you're going to need more resources, obviously.
Right.
But not all calls need every single unit out there. I've seen agencies will send 4 units for just abdominal pain.
Yeah.
Because the fire chief says, this is my town. I got to send my fire truck out there. The police captain says, well, this is my town. I got to send a police officer.
Sure.
EMS says, well, this is my town. I got to send an EMS, but he's a BLS or basic life support ambulance. So they got to send a chase vehicle with a paramedic because now it's a paramedic that needs to go.
Right.
And they're all responding from different parts. And then you got your citizens that they always see the first lights and sirens. They don't always see the second one. And that's where you cause those wake effect accidents.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just visited an agency just a couple months ago that actually had a wake effect accident from an ambulance. The ambulance was coming up behind the car and actually clipped the side mirror off of the vehicle. Yeah. Luckily, no one was hurt, but I mean, that still happens, you know? Yeah. I would kind of add to this misconception, if anybody out there is thinking that that's sort of old information about wake effect accidents, that is still very much a very real problem.
It is, still to this day, especially with newer cars. Nowadays, they're even quieter inside. They're not like the old 60s cars where everything rattled and you can hear everything. Nowadays, you know, if you put up the radio and you close that windows up, you don't really hear the sirens anymore like you used to. Especially you don't have the old federal siren. I used to love the federal sirens.
Yeah.
But and then again, you got 4 vehicles are responding. Let's look at the economic side of it.
Right.
You know, how much does it cost to just roll a truck out of a fire station?
Goodness. The cost is just going up on that, right?
And if you got some agencies that have big ladder trucks or, you know, how much does it cost to roll one of those out, you know?
Right.
So we're in California right now where tiller fire trucks are very common. How much does it cost to roll that out?
Yeah.
And how dangerous is that truck where the guy in the back got to steer opposite of where they're going?
Right.
I'm a big proponent, send the right resources, the right amount of resources, not any more or any less.
Right. And I would say, you know, without a system in place that kind of helps you understand what the situation is that you have on that call, yeah, you kind of do have to throw everything at the wall because you don't know what you're dealing with. Right. But when you have valuable information about what type of call you're going to, you need to save those resources because everybody's short-staffed. Everybody's running out of resources. So why not save them for when they're really needed? Right.
And, you know, the way things happen on Friday nights at midnight, you know, you're going to get more than one call that belongs to that fire station in their thing. You know, so if you send out all 4 trucks, well, now you left that area empty. You got to roll somebody from a farther station in to cover that call. Well, at least you still have a couple other units that could have gone.
You're robbing Peter to pay Paul there. Yeah, absolutely.
That was a good question.
That is that's a really loaded one. Yeah. But, you know, we still see that. Like you said, there's lots of different reasons why agencies might build their response that way. You know, sometimes there's different politics at play and things like that. But what we're here to say is that you don't have to.
Correct.
It's not necessary.
Not necessary.
Our system will kind of help you triage so that you don't have to throw everything at the wall.
Right.
Number 7 on our list here is that it's dangerous not to maximally respond or not to respond lights and sirens. So this one definitely ties into the one we just talked about, Jose.
Absolutely.
But tell us a little bit more about why that's a misconception.
It's a misconception because people believe that lights and sirens are going to get there quicker. And there's been many studies that you're only really saving 3 to 7 seconds depending on the area and traffic patterns. I was just recently in the UK and I found very interesting. If you guys have never been to the UK, they have a lot of traffic 24/7. There's not even there's not a time that there isn't traffic.
Yeah.
And one of the things I noticed that they have their vehicles going lights and sirens, but when they would get to a red light or just congestion, not necessarily a red light, just traffic wasn't moving.
Where they can't move, yeah.
They can't move. Instead of creating more anxiety, they just shut the sirens off.
Interesting.
They keep their lights on, they shut the sirens off, and then once the light turns green or traffic starts moving again, then they'll put the siren back on, and people, now the traffic's moving, they're able to get out of their way.
Right.
So I found that interesting because here in the States, most people will move out, you know, with sirens, either right or left, depending on what state you are and stuff like that. But again, when you get to traffic, you get to traffic. What are you going to do?
When you're stuck, you're stuck. That siren is not going to part the seas of cars in front of you, right? Magically.
And then some states, like where I used to be in South Florida, you can only go 10 miles above the speed limit with lights and sirens. So what are you really saving? You know, so other than creating anxiety in traffic, you're really not saving a lot of time.
Okay. All right. So the next one here is that protocol and training is all that's needed to quote unquote do EMD. Oh, wow. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this one, too.
So coming from a training background, EMD is protocol and training for EMD or EPD or EFD is all you need to get started. The biggest thing is continuing dispatch education. Even us EMTs, paramedics, even police officers, they got to go and do, shooting range every once in a while to keep their skills up. In the dispatch world, it's the same thing. You got to do your CDs, especially on the medical side. Science changes. They're constantly changing concepts and stuff like that. And it's great to do your CDs. That's why the academy requires every 2 years to do 24 hours of CD and renew your certification. So it's not just protocol training and you're done. It's protocol training and continuing to keep up with standards and doing continuing dispatch education.
Sharpening that craft, yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yep. Now, I would add to that, Jose, you and I have been a part of the implementations department for many years now, too. It goes beyond just the dispatchers into other things that are best practices as well, right?
Field unit training, so they know what they're doing. They know what they're responding to when they get the calls from us, from the dispatchers. Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, and we also need to have some policies in place on how the system is going to work with the other things that we have going on in the comm center.
Medical directors, we need to be up to speed.
Yeah.
Changes in the protocol, stuff like that also.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there are lots of elements. And maybe speak to that a little bit about the implementation and kind of how we are, really trying to line agencies up with all of the different best practice elements that are above and beyond. We don't want to discount the training of the dispatchers and EMD certification, but above and beyond that to line them up for sustainable success.
One of the things we've started doing now in implementations we do what's called an agency management class. And when we get a new implementation, we want to bring admin staff to at least attend a certification course, whatever discipline they're implementing. Because that gives the background and knowledge to all the administrative staff for that agency, the knowledge that normally they may not have taken the course. Yes, the dispatchers or call takers are going to take it, but admin doesn't.
Yeah.
So when a dispatcher or call taker has a concern, they're coming from the protocol side of that admin, whether it be the medical director, the chief, whatever the case is. They come in and they don't have that knowledge of where the protocol is coming from or what that question is coming from. Doing that management class ahead of time, it puts them in a good spot to understand what's going on. Plus, it gives them the ability to, one of the things we do in stakeholder and kickoff sessions is to go over all the admin options that they can change and stuff like that. So it gives them the tools that they need to make better decisions.
Okay. And you and I both know as well that quality assurance is a huge element of EMD. So, without a good quality assurance program in place, you're not going to be set up to be successful either, right?
Correct.
So
QA catches, and again, not one of the misconceptions that we're talking about here today maybe, but one of the different misconceptions is quality assurance is discipline, and that's not. Quality assurance is training to continue. Back to our prior misconception of needing more training. Quality assurance is going to catch that.
Right.
Where they're missing something or maybe we need to touch up on something.
Right, or any opportunities to improve, really. Improve the response overall. It might be more than just protocol. Sometimes it can find that you've got systems that aren't really working efficiently or SOPs or different things that you're doing that could be done differently. So, yeah, it's definitely more of a whole system approach rather than just protocol and training. And I like the way I like the way you say that. Protocol and training is where you start, right? That might be one of the first steps, but it's certainly not the whole thing to do EMD.
Correct.
All right, so the last one on our list here is that we can do this stuff ourselves with whatever homegrown protocols that we have in place. Now, you spoke a little bit about this earlier of the knowledge that dispatchers already have or that we can do it better. What do you have to say about this one, Jose?
Okay. The one thing I would say is the disadvantage you have with homegrown protocols is that you don't have the advantage of over 3,400 centers inputting into our protocol. Our protocol is not static.
Right.
It's constantly changing based on input from all the centers around the world. Where you do a homegrown, it's only based on what you're doing there. So you don't have that benefit of learning what could work better, I should say.
The world outside your bubble, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So there might be science and research and, just factual data that supports doing it different and making a change that you're missing out on.
And homegrown, you're not going to get that. You're going to, like you said, you're getting what's in your bubble.
What about this sort of misconception of the dispatchers doing it themselves, just based on whatever experience or knowledge they have rolling around in their heads from whatever jobs they come into this?
So you've seen it, I've seen it. When we're in centers before they implement the protocol, it's all based on experience. My chest pain experience might be different than your chest pain experience. I come from field responder where I'm like, okay, so this chest pain, this, and this is what I want to send, the lights and sirens ALS, because I want them to, administer drugs, where you're like, I don't have that kind of experience. But I've had bad calls in chest pain where they haven't had a good outcome. Let me send 4 units to this because I think they need all the help for CPR they can get.
Right.
So there you go. How do you justify you're right or I'm right, where the protocol takes that?
It applies the science, right?
Yep.
Which is going to be more based on the patient instead of the dispatcher sitting in the chair,
Correct.
sort of
No dispatcher.
using their own biases,
Correct.
right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing that Dr. Clausen spoke of, I think during one of our very first episodes, is he spoke of this sort of little experiment that he did in Salt Lake City one time where he called 911, I think 3 or 4 times in the same day with chest pain. And he got 3 or 4 different types of responses. And so this speaks to that consistency element of no matter who answers the phone, how many years of experience they have or don't have, everybody's going to get the highest level of treatment that they need for the patient that they're calling about.
I agree, and especially, you and Doc Clausen's experiment was probably during the same day shift, but you can get wide variances between night and day shift.
Sure.
Because, night shift, we know they don't have as much administrative staff in the building.
Sure.
So they're like trying to get the call out as quick as possible. And
Well, and to be fair, a lot of times night shift could be even restricted by the types of resources they have available, right? So we do maybe have to shift things up a little bit, I guess, pun intended.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we have a lot of people coming. We spoke to this a little bit, I think, in our previous episode, 1 of 2 with this series, of, people coming into this workforce now not having as much experience. And so, but they might be a really good dispatcher if we can just train them. So we don't want to lose out or sleep on those people that would be excellent at the job.
I love agencies that are doing that, getting, like we talked in our previous episode, right out of high school.
Yeah,
I mean,
right out of
a
high
lot
school.
of kids at 18 don't know what they want to do with their lives, and this is a good opportunity, and it's a great way to get their foot in the door into a fire department or police department.
And can you imagine if we weren't able to accept those kids right out of high school because they had to have some kind of medical background to be able to do this job?
Absolutely.
Like, think of all the excellent candidates we would just miss out on because of that. And, oh my goodness, our places would be even more short-staffed than they already are.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, Jose, so that was all 9 of the most common misconceptions about emergency medical dispatching that came from our Principles of EMD book. So I really appreciate you coming on and helping me kind of debunk some of those myths and really speaking to why these are absolute misconceptions in the industry.
Once again, thank you for inviting me. This is fun.
Yeah.
I really enjoy doing this.
So now I would love to take the opportunity for our listeners, if there are any misconceptions or myths out there that you would like to share with us, we would be happy to, bring one of our experts on to speak to that. So if you've got a great idea of one of these things that you really want to ask our experts, please send those in. You can submit them to podcast@prioritydispatch.net. Once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me today, Jose. This was a lot of fun.
It was. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll have you back again.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to let us know what you liked and subscribe and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Look for @TellMeExactly to get the latest on all things emergency communications. Tell Me Exactly is a Priority Dispatch Corporation podcast developed by our team of protocol experts and hosted by me, Meridith Jensen, with Cody Ekman as producer, Reading Roberts as sound engineer, Scott Robinson and Jason Barber as executive producers.